Good evening, everyone. What's going on? This is Skyhound, also known as Geek Detective Pierce, and welcome to episode 1 of the Disney edition of this channel. So, I'm definitely going to be turning back the clock here since I know there's a lot of us who have had pets. So, this is likely going to hit home. I myself am a dog person. Some of you guys have cats. And what I'm going to be covering is an old but goodie. This actually is, from what I later found out, a remake. Now, I know people are going to be a little cringy with the word remake, and that's understandable because of nowadays. But this was back in 1993. Now, as a 90s kid myself, and for those of you guys who are around from 70s up to 90s, we get it. All of us get it, okay? We know what was not around during this time. We didn't have DVR, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have the internet. I could keep going on with a list of things that did not exist because we know this stuff. We've been there. These modernists do not know jack shit. And I'm not apologizing for cursing here because these people who keep going on about diversity and nonsense can shove it. Yeah, you heard me say it right now. They can shove it. Anyway, the one I'm going to be covering, as if you haven't figured it out, is Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey. But before I go any further, I wanted to also point out a few things. The original one, the very first Homeward Bound film, was back in the 1960s. To put that in perspective, this was roughly after World War II, and then we were getting slowly into the Cold War with Russia. Again, we had to worry about communists, not just from Russia, but also other areas. And the paranoia was way out there. Now, for those of you guys who were definitely around in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you guys get it. I was born as a 90s kid. So, technology was slowly starting to advance, but there are films, some of them, that did address the dark side of technology getting out of hand. But that's going to be for another time. I'm just giving the perspective in terms of what went on. So, again, the first one was back in the 1960s, the very original. This remake dealt with a Rottweiler Terrier. He also had a Golden Retriever. I forgot the type of cat that was used in the film. But out of the three that were doing the voice acting, there's only two that I recognized. That would be Michael J. Fox and Sally Field. If those names sound familiar to you, you guys likely know Sally Field in some other films and shows. Specifically, in my case, the only one that I recall back in the 90s, Rip Robin Williams. You guys know what I'm going to say here. Mrs. Doubtfire. Sally Field was in that film. Michael J. Fox. Some of you guys, myself included, would likely cite Back to the Future. Others would cite another film. I think, if I'm correct here, it's a horror comedy film called Teen Wolf. Some of you guys know this one and have likely watched it. So you'll recognize that guy's voice immediately. The only one that I don't know. Some of you guys likely here do. Don Amesh. That is the one that was Shadow. That is the golden retriever. The cat was Sassy. Now, I'm not trying to make an adjective here. That is the name of the cat. Let me be clear. Sassy is the name of the cat. Although, yes, the voice actress can be considered quote unquote sassy in terms of how I wouldn't say how she carried the character, but more in terms of personality. Finally, we get to the Rottweiler Terrier, who was named Chance, played by Michael J. Fox. Now that I got that part out of the way, the quick, easy summary here is that these three pets, originally they were sent over to a ranch to be looked after, and the thing was that the father of um, the father, Bob Seaver, he actually gets married to Laura Burnford. And the thing was that Chance, the bulldog in this case, but originally it was a Rottweiler Terrier in the original film. In this case, he's a pit bull in the 1993 take. He actually is the pet of Jamie Burnford, but he obviously doesn't want to be, part of the family. Shadow, the golden retriever, who is the brother of, who is owned by the brother Peter. Sassy, I just found out, I'm just checking on Wikipedia. Sassy is a Himalayan cat owned by the sister by the name of Hope. So Chance causes trouble during the wedding, and the family temporarily has to move to San Francisco because for Bob, his job is over there. But when the pets are left over at the ranch, they already miss their owners, Chance, Sassy, and Shadow. So they decide to leave the ranch, and the owner of the ranch by the name of Kate, she was trying to leave the animals to let them be looked after by one of her neighbors. But when I was rewatching this, as she was writing the note, part of it gets blown off, or at least it flies off somehow, like because she's in a rush, and it's left in the barn. Again, it's been a while since I've watched it, but I do recall certain bits and details. So the three pets leave the ranch and head off into the wilderness that's over in Sierra Nevada. And there's some really amusing parts in the film. So I'm not going to be going over like most of it, but I'm just covering parts of it. There's one part where as um Chance is trying to get a fish. He keeps trying and he has no luck. Sassy manages to get some, and then Shadow gets one. But by the time Chance is able to catch one and tries to eat it, that's when a bear comes in and he's like ignoring it. He's trying to eat, and then Shadow's trying to get his attention. He's like, "You better pay attention here." And so when Chance does see the bear, he's like, "Oh, nuts!" He's like, "Fine, you can have it." And before I forget, there's one part that like is really hilarious is that Sassy is being so pampered, and she's like when she sees the dog like lying down on the ground, she's like, "What makes you think I'm going to be lying down with you guys?" Because she's lying down on a log. But eventually she gives in, and Chance is like, "Oh, so now you decided to join us, huh?" But the funny thing is that as Sassy tries to avoid getting in the water, she does manage to find a bridge. I mean, a log in this case. While Shadow and Chance are dogs, so they're used to it. Most cats are not in terms of water, so to speak, but there are very few that do. Anyway, I'm kind of getting a little bit off track, but anyway, Sassy is about halfway through until the log breaks, and then she's being carried away by the river. Unfortunately, despite their attempts, Sassy is almost supposedly dead, and Shadow really feels the guilt of like not being able to get to her. But we find out later that she wasn't dead and gets found by an old man by the name of Quentin. So, despite Shadow and Chance trying to get food for themselves, they unfortunately come across a mountain lion. And prior to that happening, there's a moment where Chance is trying to get food, and then all of a sudden, a crab gets onto part of its lip, and Shadow's like looking at him. Like, I love the way how what's his name? Doggone it! It's been a while since I've watched it. Oh yeah, Don Amesh. I just mentioned it a while ago. Don Amesh is the one who does the voice. He points out as he's looking at Chance, "Oh, if Sassy could be here and right now and looking at this." So when the mountain lion does manage to get their attention, despite Chance pointing out that he sees it, and Shadow, despite being old, he's like, "You're just seeing things. There's nothing there." Eventually, when Shadow does see it, both manage to get away. And Chance is like saying, he's like, "I can't believe I'm running away from a cat." And he's looking at Shadow. He's like, "I won't tell if you won't." And both of them manage to devise a way of getting the mountain lion out of their way. And Chance sees a way of, I mean, Shadow and Chance sees something that is able to launch the mountain lion out of the way, because Chance finds that a rock formation that looks like this. I know it's kind of hard with my arms here, but you sort of get what I'm getting at. To him, it looks like a seesaw. If you can sort of tell a little bit from my arm position there. And Shadow eventually decides to use himself as bait. Chance is the one that launches the cat. And eventually, they're barking after their little victory. Once Sassy gets nursed back to health, she hears them and then goes off. Eventually, there's a point where Chance actually does get a bit curious when he sees a porcupine, but Shadow knows. He's like, "I wouldn't get too close if I were you." But unfortunately, Chance, being the dumb idiot that he is, gets a few quills on part of his lip. And of course, those things hurt like heck and they dig in. So eventually, um, as their human owners do miss them, um, Bob tries to get flyers put out. And it's not just him trying to get news of in terms of like where the pets are, because when they do try to get in touch with Kate, she points out they already left. And then eventually the park rangers get notified about it, and one of them points out that three animals in the Sierra Nevada wilderness, it's a really like tough chance in finding them. But one thing is clear is that one of one of the ways that they were able to be found is by chance. I'm not referring to the character here. The trio comes across a little girl who was lost, and the three of them decide to stay with the girl until the parents are found. But the only one that decides to um, lead the search party to where the girl is Shadow. So Chance and Sassy stay behind. Eventually, the park rangers recognize the three and then notify the family that they were found. Then they're brought over to the pound, but of course, Chance obviously thinks that, they're just going to be stuck there. And there's a little funny moment. And when I was watching the film again recently online, they did manage to bring up a particular theme here. And I'm going to just show the title right here. It's crazy, but I just found it so funny because it just fits. I don't know why, but it fits. Yes, this. The Mission Impossible theme. I kid you not. Watch the film again. When Sassy goes in and she's trying to lead the guard away, and then, Shadow's not able to get inside um, the area where the porcupine quills are being removed from Chance's face. And the thing is that they do manage to succeed in getting out of the pound. So by the time Bob and the rest of the family get over to the pound, one of them is like, "I'm sorry, sir, but it almost feels as though they planned it." And it's kind of crazy if you really think about it, but I wouldn't underestimate how smart some animals can be. They're able to sometimes, work certain things out. And then you have ones that are actually trained. Now, in this case, for these animals, I'm looking it up right now on Wikipedia. Ben is the name of the dog for Shadow, Tiki is the name of the cat for Sassy, and Rattler is the name of the one for Chance in the film. These animals were trained, by the way. They were not harmed. And also, on top of that, again, there's a little interesting tidbit that as the three managed to find their way back, they mentioned there's a video. I don't know if it was it was a short or if it was an actual clip, but I know I found it on YouTube somewhere. It had to do with the way um they shot the part where Shadow got, he fell inside a pit. And I kid you not, this one, like when I looked back at it, I was like, damn, for any pet owner, I mean, the way how the dialogue was delivered between Don Armesh and Michael J. Fox when they were doing that scene, it just really hits you there. And as it mentions it right here in the wiki on the wiki, um, Shadow points out to Chance that all you have to learn now is how to say goodbye. And those two see him as not just a leader, but they know that Peter is waiting for him. And earlier, Chance was very selfish, and Shadow berates him for his childishness, his pettiness, if you will. But eventually, as The family gets back. Chance is the first one that makes it, and then Sassy. So when it gets to Peter having to wait for Shadow, I mean, when you think about it, it's like really hard. And when I first watched it back then, and I saw that moment where Shadow was like about to give up, I choked up. Like I freaking choked up. But even more so when they finally got reunited. And when I watched it again, that same feeling, like I got teary eyed towards the end, it just hit that much. And again, for those of you guys who are pet owners, you get what I'm talking about. When it comes to having a pet not being around, like it, you know it's a part of your family and all that. It's not easy. And I can attest to this. But this film definitely shows the tenacity of these three who were willing to do whatever it took to get back home no matter the cost. That's how determined they were. That's how loyal they were. And the way how Amesh gave the dialogue with regards to how dogs descended from wolves, in that same vein, cats were also from, like the big cats, like the mountain lion and all of that. That was the origin for some of them, certain breeds, certain species. In the case of dogs, we know they were descendants from the wolf. And some of the lines from this film, I don't remember it that well. It's been a while since I've watched it, are like really hilarious. And I gotta say kudos to all three of the actors. Also, rip to Don Amesh, who is obviously no longer with us. For those of you guys who have, come across that man's work, I'm curious. What films would you guys recommend that I look into with regards to the actor? I mean, besides this one. And, what were your thoughts on the film? Let me know in the comments down below. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? And with that being said, this we now come towards the end of my general review of this classic film. Do hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps my channel a bit. And at least, you can try and stay tuned for what comes next. I will eventually be doing a few other Disney films at some point, but at the moment, my next one, I'm going to be doing some with regards to books. So if you've noticed, I did one with Wishbone recently. For those of you guys in the 90s who love to read, and also for any anime fans, the voice actor of Wishbone has done a few anime characters. So if you look him up, you'll recognize the voice. But anyway, there are going to be some books I'm going to be going over, as well as comic books. So I'll be going over issue 1 of Amy Jo Johnson's comic book project called The Return. Me being a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan myself, I decided to support that Kickstarter project. And then after that, as much as I want to do a few of my other projects, I will be doing um, some comparison videos for the big two. In this case, I'll be going over Doctor Strange for Marvel. On the DC side, I will be going over Wonder Woman. However, I will tell you right now, right now, this is going to be between the animated films 2007 for Doctor Strange, 2009 for Wonder Woman. Why? Because they have something the live action never did. For those of you guys who have read the comics back in the day, you sort of get where I'm coming from. The ones that keep complaining about, oh, I've never read this, I've never read that. Well, guess what? I can tell that they are the liars because one, they're all talk. I know that some of these titles were never around when they weren't around to begin with. They are the fakes that I keep having to deal with. And you know what? I will forever laugh at these fakes because they're the ones who have never watched it. They claim that I haven't, and yet I have proof. So, yeah, my next two projects that I'll be doing right after I do my general thoughts on the comic book for MMPR The Return is Doctor Strange and Wonder Woman. So stay tuned for that. And then right after that, I will be doing something a little bit earlier than I expected. So I'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, this has been Skyhound, also known as Geek Detective Pierce. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay safe, stay sane, and as always, stay humble. Peace.